3 years building that division from nothing, and I was out because of a rich woman's wounded pride. But this wasn't over. Not even close. I'm Jason Park, 34 years old, based in Austin, Texas. Until last week, I ran international operations at Sterling Foods. That Tuesday morning started normal. I arrived early, 7 sharp. The office was quiet, exactly how I preferred it. I was halfway through my second coffee when I heard the sharp click of heels on tile. The door flew open. Victoria Manning stormed into my office like she owned the building. Technically, she kind of did. She was married to Derek Manning, our CEO. Unbelievable, she snapped, her voice dripping with manufactured outrage. You disrespected me at the gala, in front of everyone. I blinked. Excuse me? At the charity dinner. You stayed seated when I walked past your table, like I was nobody. I blinked again, slower this time. I was in the middle of a conversation with clients. I didn't even see. Save it, she cut me off. I don't care about your excuses. You humiliated me. Before I could respond, she spun around and marched out like she'd just delivered a verdict. 10 minutes later, Derek appeared in my doorway with a look I'd never seen on him before. Guilt. Jason, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. This isn't easy. What's happening? He sighed and shut the door. Look, you've done exceptional work. You've built this division into something remarkable. But I can't afford problems at home right now. I just stared at him. You're firing me because your wife felt slighted that I didn't stand up fast enough? She felt disrespected, he said quietly. She thinks it reflects badly on me. She didn't even acknowledge us. I said, still processing this absurdity. She breezed past our table while we were mid-discussion with 2 visiting partners. I didn't realize she was there until she'd already passed. I know, he said softly, but she's convinced you did it deliberately. I let out a sharp breath. So that's it. He looked down. We'll provide an excellent reference letter. Severance. Obviously, you'll have strong recommendations. I laughed once, bitter and hollow. Don't bother. I walked out with nothing but a flash drive and a story so absurd I could barely believe it was real. Fired over a dinner table misunderstanding. Or at least, that's what it looked like. But what Derek and Victoria didn't know, what made this whole situation so surreal, was that I already knew Victoria. She didn't recognize me that night. But I recognized her instantly when she laughed too loudly at her own joke across the ballroom. She wasn't just the CEO's wife. She was also Tori, my secret tutoring client for the past 7 months. And she had no idea she just fired the very man who'd been writing her Mandarin speeches for half a year. She thought I was just another corporate employee at the company dinner. She had no clue what she'd just started. 7 months before I got fired, I was broke. Not tight budget broke. I mean checking account in double digits, juggling bills across 3 credit cards, ignoring unknown numbers because I knew they were collectors. I'd taken a gamble launching that international division. The title was impressive, but the salary wasn't. The bonuses were supposed to come later, once we became profitable. I couldn't wait that long. So I picked up a side gig, something discreet under the table. A friend from business school mentioned a tutoring platform. Elite language instruction, high-end clients, cash payments only. I figured maybe some executive's kid needed help with Mandarin. I created a fake profile just to see what would happen. Under the name Marcus Chun. Clean-cut, Ivy League aesthetic, fabricated resume, genuine language expertise. 3 days later, I got a response. The request came through the platform portal. No real name, just Tori. Wanted one-on-one Mandarin instruction. For sessions weekly, evenings only. 6-month goal. Boardroom-level fluency by summer. I almost declined. The objectives were absurd. But then I saw the address. Penthouse, West Austin, Tower 7. One of those buildings where even the concierge looked like he earned 6 figures. I accepted. The first evening I showed up in disguise. Charcoal suit, hair slicked differently, wireframe glasses, worn leather portfolio. I even modified my speech pattern, more precise, polished. Marcus wasn't some operations manager surviving on instant ramen. He was the type who charged $200 an hour and didn't negotiate. She opened the door barefoot, holding a martini. "You're older than I expected," she said, eyeing me. "You're more intoxicated than I expected." I replied. She smirked. "This should be interesting." She called herself Tori. No last name. I didn't realize until weeks later that she was Victoria Manning, married to Derek Manning, my actual CEO. Back then, she was just another wealthy woman trying to purchase fluency the same way she bought designer bags. Fast and flashy. She had zero foundation. Barely knew how to say hello in Mandarin, but she was convinced she could fake her way to competence. "I've got a summer opportunity in the works," she told me that first night, sprawling on a velvet sofa while I set up materials. "Chinese investors, major partnership. Derek doesn't think I can manage it alone, but I'm going to prove him wrong." She sipped her drink and grinned. "So you're going to make me brilliant, right?" Most students wanted to understand the language. Tori wanted to perform it. She didn't care about grammar, tones, or fundamentals. She wanted memorized lines, power phrases, impressive-sounding sentences. "Write out phonetically," she'd say, "like song lyrics. I don't care what it means." Every lesson was identical. Her on the couch, legs tucked under her, asking me to repeat phrases dozens of times so she could parrot them back. She couldn't count to 10 in Mandarin, but she wanted to pitch to billionaires. Still, I showed up 4 nights weekly, 2 hours each, because she paid cash and I desperately needed it. She never once asked what I did during the day, never looked at my face for longer than 5 seconds, which, as it turned out, was a catastrophic oversight, because the man she would eventually fire for disrespecting her was the same man teaching her how to fake her breakthrough moment. By week 3, I knew Tori would never actually learn Mandarin. She couldn't distinguish yes from no. She pronounced "thank you" like it rhymed with Jell-O. I once asked her to repeat a basic phrase, and she replied, "Is that Japanese?" Yet she wasn't just confident. She was convinced she was approaching fluency. "This is going to transform everything," she told me one evening. Paced in her living room in silk pajamas, gesturing with a crystal wine glass like she was delivering a keynote. "Derek thinks I'm just decoration. Wait until I land this investor partnership. Then he'll understand." She never specified exactly what the deal involved, just kept dropping hints about a major Chinese venture, something in wellness or lifestyle, possibly cosmetics, maybe retail. She didn't seem clear on the specifics herself. What she was clear on, the image. "I want to walk into that room," she said, "say 2 sentences in perfect Mandarin and make them think I'm fluent. Not just fluent, exceptionally fluent, sophisticated, confident, like I studied in Beijing or something." So that's what I delivered. I stopped trying to teach fundamentals. She didn't want to learn. She wanted to perform. I wrote scripts, paragraphs of Mandarin, spelled out phonetically, color-coded by tone. She didn't know what she was saying, but she could deliver it like a rehearsed monologue. We spent hours drilling. I played the investors. She'd respond with her carefully memorized lines. She had no idea what any of it meant. If I asked her to rephrase something, blank stare. If I changed one word, total meltdown. "I don't need to understand it," she snapped once when I pushed her to actually learn basic numbers. "I just need to sell it." She wasn't building fluency. She was building a fantasy. Her own international businesswoman performance piece, where she charmed billionaires and made her husband envious of her brilliance. It wasn't about language. It wasn't even about the deal. It was about status. "Derek says I never finish anything," she told me once offhandedly while folding a designer scarf. "Well, this I'm finishing. This is my project. I'm going to own that room." I nodded like I agreed. But privately, I started backing up our sessions. All of them. She had cameras in the penthouse, but I had a discreet recording device and a secure cloud folder, just in case. Because something about how she spoke made me uneasy. She told everyone she was fluent, loudly, frequently, even to me. "I'm basically fluent now, right?" she asked one evening. "You're skilled at repetition," I said carefully. "Same thing." Then came the critical moment. The night she said, "I'm going to do the opening in Mandarin at the gala. Just a preview for the investors. Derek thinks it'll impress them." "What gala?" I asked. The golf fundraiser. That charity event he hosts annually. All the executives will be there. My stomach dropped. That was my team's event. I'd already confirmed attendance. I was going to be there as myself, not Marcus Chun. Not the guy with glasses and a press suit and a fabricated LinkedIn profile. Just Jason Park, the person she didn't know she already knew. I stayed silent, realizing she was going to walk into that ballroom, deliver lines I wrote, and pretend she was something she wasn't. And she had no idea the guy she'd be performing for was the same one who built her entire act, word for word. I arrived late deliberately. The charity gala was already underway when I walked in. Sharp navy suit, no glasses, clean-shaven. The ballroom smelled like truffle oil and polished ambition. Everyone was there, my team, Derek, the board, several international investors. Even that guy from finance who always wore velvet loafers like it was 1992. And her, Victoria Manning. I spotted her across the room in a silver gown that probably cost more than my semester tuition. Laughing, hair swept elegantly, cocktail in hand. She worked the crowd like her personal stage. I almost didn't recognize her, without her martini glass and leopard print slippers. This wasn't Tori in her penthouse pajamas. This was Victoria in her element. Polished, powerful, completely unaware that the guy coaching her twice weekly had just walked in wearing his real identity. I kept my distance, stayed near the back, made small talk, sipped sparkling water. The plan was simple. Stay invisible, leave after dessert. But plans never survive around wealthy people with grudges. It happened right after the main course. I was seated with the international division, my team. We were laughing about some travel story when one of them called across the table. "Hey, Jason, didn't you say you studied in Chengdu?" I felt the atmosphere shift. Across the room, Victoria's head snapped up. Our eyes met for maybe 2 seconds, long enough for my stomach to twist. I saw it. Confusion, recognition, but not the kind that brings clarity. She stared like she was trying to match a face to a forgotten dream. Her fingers froze around her champagne flute. I looked away. Back to my team, back to the conversation, heart hammering. She didn't approach. Didn't say anything, but I saw the wheels turning. For the rest of the evening, I avoided her like a minefield. Every time I caught her scanning the room, I shifted positions or stepped into the hallway. I made it to the valet line before I let myself breathe. I thought I'd escaped it. I hadn't. The next morning, 7:15, she burst into my office like she was storming a courtroom. "You didn't stand," she snapped, arms crossed, eyes blazing. "What?" "At the gala, when I passed your table. You stayed seated. Like I was invisible. Like I didn't matter." I stared at her. I didn't even realize. "You disrespected me in front of the entire board." I sat in stunned silence as she spun around and left without another word. 10 minutes later, Derek appeared, looking like a man with a loaded weapon pointed at his marriage. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't have this kind of conflict bleeding into my home life." "Derek, come on." "It's not about you," he said, avoiding my eyes. "It's about keeping things manageable." And just like that, I was out, fired over a chair. What they didn't know, what made it so poetic, was that the guy they just dismissed was the one who wrote every word she planned to say in Mandarin next week. Every syllable, every line. And if she opened her mouth in front of those investors, it was my voice that would come out, not hers. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs. 14 flights down, one step at a time. Just to cool off, just to breathe, just to remind myself that despite how calm I'd act in the office, I was angry enough to set the entire building on fire. 3 years. I built that international division from nothing. I secured our first Chinese partnership out of thin air. I worked 18-hour days and flew economy to save the company money, while Derek Manning ate filet mignon on a corporate card. And I got terminated because his wife didn't like how quickly I stood up. That would have been pathetic enough. But the part that really made me clench my jaw, the part that kept replaying as I walked to my car, was that she still didn't know who I was. She didn't recognize the man she'd spent 7 months calling Marcus. So I reminded her husband. Back home, I sat at my desk, opened the old tutoring laptop, and access the archive. Every session backed up. Every file labeled by date. 7 months of footage. Video clips of Tori butchering basic vocabulary. Audio of her slurring words into incomprehensible gibberish. Her laughing when she said something completely wrong. Her bragging that she didn't need to understand. She just needed to sound impressive. I attached 6 files to an email. Then I recorded one final message. This time, just me. No glasses, no alias, no disguise. I stared directly into the camera. Hi, Derek. I'm Marcus Chun. Or more accurately, Jason Park, your former international operations manager. I taught your wife Mandarin for the last 7 months. You paid me. She paid me. Every single thing she plans to say in that presentation, I wrote it word for word. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't understand a single sentence. She's performing. And now you're letting her pitch to foreign investors. If she deviates from my script even slightly, it's going to collapse. You'll lose the deal. You'll lose the division. And this time, Derek, that won't be my fault. I attach a video. Hit send. Lean back in my chair. No regrets. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Derek. I didn't answer. Then again. Then once more. Voicemail. By hour 2, I had 11 missed calls and 1 text from a number I hadn't seen since our first tutoring session. Victoria Manning. You think this is funny? You just committed a serious breach of confidentiality. My attorney will be in touch. Delete everything. Now, I didn't reply. She called next, twice, left voicemails both times. The second one was screaming, "You're finished. You hear me? I will destroy every opportunity you ever get in this city." The irony was rich, considering she'd already fired me for doing nothing. I sat there for a while, staring out the window, watching a plane drift slowly across the sky. 3 days. That's how long they had until the presentation. 3 days until Victoria stood in front of a room full of Mandarin-speaking investors, armed with a script she could barely pronounce, written by the man she just burned. She thought she was playing a part. She never once asked who was holding the script. She was about to find out. The call came at 8:05 in the morning. Exactly. I was halfway through breakfast when Derek's name flashed across my screen. I let it ring out. He called again. And again. By the 4th attempt, I picked up, "Morning, Derek. I assume this is a social call." "Jason," he said, breathless. "They're here." I leaned back in my chair. "Who?" "The investors. They arrived early. They're in the conference room right now. Victoria's locked herself in the restroom. She won't come out." I didn't say anything. "Jason, please," he continued. "I'm begging you. This deal. If it falls apart, the entire international division could get shut down." There it was. It wasn't about Victoria. It never was. It was about saving his position. And mine was the only lifeline left. "Derek," I said calmly, 2 days ago, your wife marched into my office and accused me of embarrassing her. You supported her. Fired me. Now you want help. I know how it looks." "Oh, I think you know exactly how it is." He paused. "We'll reinstate your position. Restructure it. Hell, name your salary. I'll get the board to approve whatever you want." I kept my tone level. "I don't care about salary." "Then what do you want?" I took a breath. The truth was I didn't want to help him. I didn't want to help her. But I kept thinking about my team, the analysts, the associates, the ones who worked late nights on calls to Beijing and Shanghai, the ones who built this pitch with me from the ground up. I wasn't doing it for Derek. "I'll do it," I said, "but not as an employee." He hesitated. "What does that mean?" "I'll walk in once. As a consultant. No titles, no contracts. I run the presentation. After that, I'm done." He exhaled like someone just pulled him from deep water. "Done. Whatever you want." "One more thing," I added. "You tell her nothing. She doesn't get a warning." He didn't argue. He just said, "Can you be here in 30? 20. I hung up and tossed my plate in the sink. By the time I walked into that conference room, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Sleek suits, folded arms, half-finished espressos. Derek stood near the head of the table, color completely drained. A few investors were murmuring to each other in Mandarin. Then I stepped in, and she saw me. Victoria was standing near the window, arms crossed, face ghost white. When her eyes met mine, it was like watching someone realize the threat was already inside the house. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I gave her a polite nod, then turned to the investors and greeted them in flawless, conversational Mandarin. They smiled, nodded, sat up straighter. I didn't say a word to Victoria. Didn't need to, because in that moment, she finally understood who I was. And worse, what she wasn't. The boardroom was immaculate. Polished wood, leather chairs, fresh bottled water at every seat. The kind of setup designed to impress or distract, depending on your preparation. The Chinese investors arrived precisely on time. 5 of them. Impeccable suits, calm demeanors, the kind of quiet confidence that didn't require theatrics. I greeted each one in Mandarin with a firm handshake and genuine warmth. They lit up immediately. Relaxed postures, approving nods, subtle smiles. We hadn't even started, and they were already more comfortable than I'd seen in any previous call. Victoria sat at the head of the table, perfectly still. Her makeup couldn't hide the panic in her eyes. She gave me one tight glance, then focused on the printout in front of her, the one with phonetically spelled out lines I'd written months ago. "Good morning," she began, eyes locked on the script. "Welcome. We're very pleased to have you here." It was clunky, robotic, but they were polite. They nodded, smiled, waited. She continued. Her voice shook slightly, but she hit her marks, the lines we drilled night after night. This partnership brings opportunity. Both sides. Trust and growth. It was working. Sort of. They listened. They didn't look offended yet. Then one of them, a younger investor, probably mid-30s, clearly the sharpest in the group, leaned forward. He asked a simple follow-up question in Mandarin, something any basic student could have answered. "Could you explain what growth means to you in the context of this partnership?" Victoria blinked. She glanced at the script, back at the investor. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Then she smiled too wide, too forced, and tried to improvise. What came out was absolute nonsense. "We, very growth business. Many share, strong future in soup." Soup. I saw one investor glance at another, expression unreadable. Another raised an eyebrow. Victoria froze. The room did too. Then quietly, the lead investor turned to me and asked in perfect Mandarin, "Would you mind clarifying the expansion framework she referenced?" I nodded, and from that moment on, they stopped looking at her. For the next 40 minutes, I ran the meeting. I translated. I explained. I pulled up market data, detailed projections, walked them through the regional logistics strategy I developed last quarter, the one Victoria hadn't known existed. She didn't say another word. Derek sat silently beside her, face blank, hands folded. Every few minutes he'd glance at her, like maybe she'd rejoin the conversation. She never did. When we wrapped, the investors stood, smiling. They thanked me by name, asked for my contact information, said they looked forward to future discussions with me. Then the lead investor turned to Derek and asked in English, "So, who will be our primary contact moving forward? You or Mr. Park?" Derek hesitated, looked at me, looked at Victoria. She was still staring at the table. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Park." The investor nodded. "Good. That's who we were hoping for." After they left, the silence was suffocating. Victoria finally stood. She looked at Derek, then at me. For the first time in all the months I'd known her, she looked like she had no idea what to say. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk. I just gathered my notes, stood up, and walked out of the room. She built her stage out of borrowed scripts and memorized words. But when the spotlight hit, it was my name the room remembered, not hers.